TuneIn is the audio platform with something for everyone. News.
In order to secure convictions in a court of law, it is essential that we conclusively.
Sports.
Got clock at 4. Doncic. The step back 3. You bet.
Music.
You set my world on fire. Yes,
and even podcasts. Whatever you love, hear it right here on TuneIn. Go to TuneIn.com or download the TuneIn app to start listening.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Remember when you first saw the potential? And then through some elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love, you transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive that's all your own. Look to your left. Look to your right. It's official. No one's got a ride like this. There's nothing else that sounds like, feels like, or looks like the set of wheels in your garage. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. So there's no limit to how far you can take it. Brake kits, turbochargers, engines, exhaust kits, roof racks, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus at these prices, well, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed. Well, door. In as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
It's time. It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. If you don't remember, I am Brian Renick. And Al is finally joined by someone other than Al. And we are here to talk all things 49ers, which, Al, it means we're here to talk again about Brandon Aiyuk, the biggest storyline coming out of Santa Clara, because there is no quarterback drama, which I'll be perfectly honest, I don't like talking about Brandon Aiyuk this much, but I still like it better than quarterback drama. How do you feel?
So when you were out last week, one of the things I opened the show with was I come in these shows prepared and I have all these things I want to talk about. And then something happens with Brandon Aiyuk and I have to talk about Brandon Aiyuk.
Yep.
And we're right back where we started. So Here we go. I guess we got to talk more about Brandon Aiyuk. But Brian, dude, I'm glad you're back, man. So Brian wasn't feeling too well. He got quite sick. We were a little nervous. There were a few days we didn't know if Brian was maybe alive for a little while. So texting back and forth with David Bonilla, who runs 49ers Web Zone, and we're like, we don't think he's dead, but we got to figure out like where he is. Turns out he wasn't dead, but he was very sick. And I'm very glad to have him back because it is weird as hell talking to yourself when you're doing a podcast, especially for us on YouTube. Now I'm just looking at myself talking and it's really awkward. It really is. So I'm glad to have you back. We were going to have Akash. Akash was going to be on the show with us. He had an emergency. We're going to try to get something set up with him later in the week to have him on to talk some 49ers as well. But you're stuck with me and Brian. And we're stuck with Brandon Aiyuk. So apparently now, Brian, because it's always something, he's disgruntled. And he's meeting with the 49ers. Today is Monday, and they're having some kind of meeting about his disgruntledness. I wish somebody would insult me and offer me $26 million a year. But, I guess he's got what he thinks he's worth, and it's not $26 million. So they're at a stalemate, and I'm interested to see where this meeting, whatever it was, whatever they talked about, what comes out of it, if anything.
Yeah. According to Ryan Clark, Aiyuk has been taking these negotiations personal in quotation marks. And the offers so far have affected him. And it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for you. It's hard for any fan to be like, how are you disgruntled when some team just offered you $26 million a year to play football? Like, I get it. Like, I understand the frustration on fans' parts, and I, to a certain extent, understand when negotiations like this get to this point where fans start to take the side of the team as opposed to the player. But I, for one, will always side with the player. I, for one, will always side with the employee rather than the employer, because ultimately, again, is $26 million a year a lot of money? Absolutely. But you also have to understand that there's a market out there. And as a player, you have to know your worth. And when you see players like Amon-Ra St. Brown and AJ Brown and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith sign deals that are either more than 26 million, or you have done more than a player that signed for about 26 million. That would be Devontae Smith. You got to know your worth and you got to know your market, and you're going to fight for, you're going to fight to be paid that. And if the team that you currently play for isn't willing to meet you where you feel like you deserve to be met, then, it is your prerogative to then either figure out a way to get the team to meet you there, or be willing to go somewhere else. And according to Ryan Clark, again, Aiyuk's first choice is to stay in San Francisco, which makes sense. But he is comfortable playing elsewhere if they're willing to trade him. And so, again, I don't fault Brandon Aiyuk for fighting for every penny. Football is a dangerous sport. You are literally one play away from never playing the sport again. And so I would never settle for less than what I think I am worth and I deserve based on the market. And the market dictates what you're worth. And the market dictates that Brandon Aiyuk is worth $30 million a year. And I wouldn't settle for any less than that if I were him.
I'm going back and forth. I agree with you. I think I would tend to side more with the player too. And I feel like in this negotiation, the fans are kind of siding with Aiyuk. I haven't seen, at least people haven't turned on him yet. I haven't seen a lot of, just sign. What are you doing when you're being greedy? I haven't seen a lot of that yet at all. But I have been trying to come into this situation and look at this situation by playing devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. You just brought up all the points with Aiyuk, saying he wants to get paid like these other guys. He's worth $30 million a year. Some of these things that I talked about last week, but I'll bring them up to you too, coming from the 49ers side. If you look at 2022, which was just 2 years ago, he was 22nd in receiving yards. He was 28th in targets, and he was 22nd in receptions. Last year, he was 36th in targets. He was 31st in receptions. Now, he was 7th in yards and 2nd in yards per reception, which shows you how efficient he is. Yeah. It shows you maybe if he does get more targets and if they do want to pay him for what he might do, he may be worth that number. But if you're the 49ers and your production's been mid-level, dude, really, I mean, last year was the only year, and it was in yards, where he was a top 10 receiver. He hasn't had that kind of volume. That's not to say he can't be a top 10 receiver. If he gets the volume, I think he can be, but he hasn't had that. So if you're the 49ers and you're just saying, listen, man, I know you want to get paid like an AJ Brown or an Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're not going to get Justin Jefferson money, obviously.
No,
but you want to get that
that's
range.
An outlier.
But those guys are bona fide alpha dog number ones. You are not. You are more of a Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, number 2 type production, because our offense runs through Christian McCaffrey and because we have all these different mouths to feed. So they may be saying to him, look, this is where you come in, man. Now, ultimately, I believe cooler heads will prevail and they'll come in at about 28 million, right? It just makes sense that's what would happen. He wants 30, they're offering 26. You come in at 28, and then whatever guarantees you're going to have in there. But if you're playing devil's advocate and you're looking from the Niners side too, that they have a pretty good argument. And they may also think, Kyle Shanahan feels his best offensive weapon is Kyle Shanahan. You know what I mean? Like he can scheme things open. And if Ricky Pearsall comes in and they're like, you know what, this dude's for real, they don't give a shit. Maybe Kyle's just like, all right, I really like Brandon Aiyuk, but I like him at this number. And if he's not here, I'll find the next Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe he really feels that way. So we'll see what happens as things go on. And as we look at the state of the 49ers for this season, whether Aiyuk is there or not will play a big part in that. But this is, again, to me, like they were going to sign Nick Bosa. They were going to sign George Kittle. Fred Warner wasn't going anywhere. I don't know that Brandon Aiyuk isn't going anywhere. He might be. I don't think he's on the level of those guys with the team in terms of importance and what how they feel, what they want to do, they can replace him. And they may already have with Pearsall. And you do not have to get rid of Deebo Samuel after this year. So I don't know. He may go the route of DeForest Buckner. It really may go that way.
So let me ask you a question. Let me throw out a few scenarios, and you tell me whether you think that in these scenarios the 49ers remain Super Bowl contenders.
Okay.
All right. First scenario, they re-signed Brandon Aiyuk at 28 to 30 million annual average value, and he comes in. Maybe he misses the first couple weeks of camp, but he comes in. He signs around the same time that, let's say, Kittle, Warner, right? I would say earlier than Deebo, because Deebo was almost towards the end of camp. But let's say that he signs early. Are the 49ers still a Super Bowl contender or an NFC favorite?
Yes, status quo,
yes.
For sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brandon Aiyuk plays on his 5th-year option, but is, obviously disgruntled, misses most of camp trying to get that contract. They never come to it. But again, he is on his 5th year, which means that he can't go anywhere. The 49ers don't trade him. So he plays on the 5th-year option, but he misses all of camp and he's not happy.
I mean, if it's still, even if he's there at the end of the year, if he's Brandon Aiyuk at the end of the year, yeah, they're still Super Bowl contenders this year.
The 49ers trade Brandon Aiyuk prior to the season. Are they still NFC favorites?
Oh, man. They're lesser favorites than they would have been. They might still be. Well, it depends. That depends on what you're going to get out of Ricky Pearsall.
Right.
Is he?
But you put a lot of pressure on Ricky Pearsall's shoulders at that point.
I'm not expecting him to be Puka. I don't think anybody is. But if he's Puka-ish, then maybe you don't lose a ton there. Can Juwan Jennings take on a bigger role? That sort of thing. They've proven that they can be Super Bowl contenders, kind of with Aiyuk just being a dude, right? 2021, he was just kind of a guy. I mean, he was a good player, but things went through Deebo and Kittle that year, and they didn't have Christian McCaffrey then. They didn't have the kind of quarterback they do then. But I think what you're getting at, and you're right in asking it, are they a better team with or without Brandon Aiyuk this year? They're a better team with it. Of course they are.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Of course they are. But as they look through moving forward and building around Brock Purdy, maybe they feel if we give him this money, we can't continue this window. We're going to be hurting. We can't pay as many guys. We can't keep Lenore and Ward, that sort of thing. And Steve-O in the chat brought up a point that we forgot that Aiyuk walked into ESPN with Jaden Daniels. He talked to Ryan Clark with Jaden Daniels, right? They were together.
Yeah. Those dudes have been friends for a long time. I mean, let's be perfectly they were teammates. They were teammates at Arizona State. They've been friends for a long time. I'm not that worried about it. But I mean, Washington would absolutely make sense as a trading partner with Adam Peters as the GM there. Peters obviously knows Aiyuk. Whether or not Peters is willing to meet Aiyuk's contract demands, we have no idea.
If is Aiyuk better than McLaurin? I mean, is he better than McLaurin? I don't know. So
he's more productive.
Might be saying
he's more productive and healthier than McLaurin. And that, I think, is the key. That's one thing that a lot of people I don't think have talked about is Brandon Aiyuk hasn't missed a lot of time. That's another thing that he has in his, to his advantage is to walk in and be like, look, you gave the contract that I'm looking for with the cap where it's at is equivalent to the contract that you gave to Deebo. And Deebo has missed a lot more time than I have. And granted, you gave Deebo that contract on the back of a season where he basically did everything. But if you look at the season that we just had, I was the one that carried the passing offense. Like it was me. I was the one.
And my arrow is pointed up.
Yeah. And my arrow is pointed up. And my quarterback loves me. Right. Like I'm my quarterback's favorite target.
They're a great
fit.
Yeah.
There are, to me, there are, as much as the 49ers have leverage, I think Brandon Aiyuk has leverage as well. I would not be okay with just a straight up Aiyuk for McLaurin trade because McLaurin also needs a contract, probably can't command what Aiyuk can, but you cannot count on McLaurin to be on the field every game. Whereas with Aiyuk, you can, and he has proven that. You also can't do that with Deebo. Can you imagine a wide receiver room where your top two players are McLaurin and Deebo? guys that get injured all the time. I would hate that. I would absolutely hate that. So does Washington make sense as a trade partner? Sure. But I'm going to need more than just Terry McLaurin, because that doesn't work for me. If you're giving me McLaurin and a second round pick, maybe I'm enticed by that, but just straight up Aiyuk for McLaurin, I'm out. That is not a trade that I'm interested in.
I just feel we want Brandon Aiyuk to be on the 49ers. Again, I was playing devil's advocate with what I was saying where the Niners
100%.
We think they're a better team with him. I think the arrow's pointed up. I think he's somebody you help build around Purdy. This is the going rate for a number one type guy. Again, whether the Niners feel he is or not, that remains to be seen. But the way, I guess my kind of fear is that the Niners are coming into this like, we like you at this number, and we think you'll be great on this team for the next 4 or 5 years. We'd love to have you. But Kyle Shanahan thinks Kyle Shanahan is the star, right? This is what they're thinking. Kyle's offense is kind of the star. We'll replace you. That's kind of where I think the Niners are coming from here. We love you at this number, but also we'll replace you. And if we get into the preseason and Pearsall looks great, and Jacob Cowling looks like a player, sayonara, dude. They may really feel that way. But does that make them a better team this year? No. And do you have a closing window with these stars on your team? Yes. So again, I'm not advocating for this at all. I want to see Brandon Aiyuk get extended. I want to see him on this team for the next 4 or 5 years. But seeing where the Niners might be coming from here, maybe that's it. I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to see things from both sides.
I also understand that side, and I get that side. But to me, that also sets a really bad precedent for the locker room, because infamously, Kyle Shanahan is very hard on receivers. It's the position that he's hardest on because it's the position that he played. And there are certain things that he expects out of his wide receivers. And the things that he expects are things that really, if you take a step back, are things that don't typically earn wide receivers big contracts, right? It's the blocking, it's the it's the again, being a part of an offense that has a lot of mouths to feed, but B, is predicated on the run game, right? It's difficult, I think, in today's NFL to get wide receivers to buy into that role, to buy into that type of offense and that type of effort that you've got to put in, play in and play out, right? There's no taking anything off in Kyle Shanahan's offense. If you do, you're not going to see the field.
But yeah, he got benched early in 21.
Right.
Doing that.
Right. And so he bought in. He fully bought in. And you can tell because he's a tremendous blocker for his size. And he doesn't take plays off. He doesn't dog plays because he knows, hey, this is what's expected of me. So when a player buys in like that, and then you go, yeah, but our offense isn't, we're not going to throw enough to give you a market rate deal. Like how are you going to get more wide receivers to buy in when they know, hey, if I buy in, I'm not going to get paid because they believe that I'm expendable. And to me, that just sets a bad precedent. I think if you draft a guy, he buys into your system and he makes your team better, you pay him, and you pay him at market value, not at 49er value, at market value, because that's how the market works. And that's how the NFL works. And if you're going to try and undercut players because you think that, Kyle Shanahan is the star, you're not going to get players to come to your team eventually. Right. And again, it may be that you're just like, well, then we'll just draft wide receivers all the time and cycle through them. And hey, maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't. But to me, it sets a bad precedent of you can buy into our program and you can excel at it, but we're not going to pay you market value because we think that, the market is too high for wide receivers. I mean, the market is the market.
And I do think the wide receiver market's going to correct itself at some point, but where we are right now, it's what it is. It is what it is. If you're signing a wide receiver to a contract extension now, this is the going rate. And this goes to kind of back up what we talked about, where the Niners maybe wait too long to do this. I mean, if they had done this last year, what do you get them for? Maybe about what Debo's making, maybe a slight bump from maybe not even that.
Yeah. Or even just the end of the season, right? Like,
right. Before the market has exploded. Look what the Colts did with Michael Pittman. They got him for what was it, $23 million or whatever it was. So if they had just done it, said, okay, here we go.
And what the Eagles did with Devontae Smith.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of the Niners sort of did that with Garoppolo, where they signed him to that contract knowing it was just going to get, and it did. The QB salaries just went nuts after that. But by waiting, that's what they've done with it. And they have all these other, I guess as we transition a little bit here, we look at the state of the team this year. This contract negotiation can also be holding up maybe some other extensions they have to do with Charvarius Ward, Denominator Lenore, Dre Greenlaw. If they want to extend Aaron Banks, we'll see if they want to do that. Hufanga, if he ends up being healthy, and that's a big question for the Niners this year with those guys. Who's going to be around? Are any of those guys going to get disgruntled? There's a lot of different things going on with them.
America's favorite place to watch football is Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Catch all the biggest games at a viewing experience built for sports fans. Chill in one of their 6 pools on 3 different levels for a perfect view of their massive screen. Plenty of seating options, from cozy daybeds to private, temperature-controlled cabanas. Stadium Swim. Book your spot today at circalasvegas.com.
It's the most anticipated WNBA season in history.
So you know what that means.
Court is back in session with Queens of the Court, a WNBA podcast.
I'm your girl, Cheryl Swoops.
And I'm Jordan Robinson. All WNBA season long, we'll bring you interviews with star athletes, analysis on your favorite teams,
and lots of hot takes.
Order in the court.
Follow and listen to Queens of the Court, free on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, picture this. It's Friday afternoon when a thought hits you. I can waste another weekend doing the same old whatever, or I can conquer it. I can hop into my all-new Hyundai Santa Fe and hit the road. Any road. The steeper, the better. Because my all-new Santa Fe is available with H-Track all-wheel drive, so I can hit the trail without a worry in the world. Heck, with 3 rows and best-in-class rear cargo space, I can pack the whole family in with all our gear. We've got available dual wireless charging for our phones, so we'll never lose touch with civilization, and we won't lose touch with the primordial power of Mother Earth. So which is it? Waste the weekend or do something a little more epic? And conquer it in the all-new Hyundai Santa Fe. Visit HyundaiUSA.com or call 562-314-4603 for more details. Hyundai. There's joy in every journey.
Brian, what I wanted to ask you too, as we look at this team this year, when you look at the defense, are you still confident that this is going to be a top 10 to 15 defense in the NFL this year?
I absolutely do. I just think on talent alone, I think that they're a top 15 defense. I think if whatever Brandon Staley brings and whatever Sorensen brings, if they can meld together, and Sorensen can kind of bring that, I guess you would call it that D'Amico Ryans energy on the sideline, which this defense seems to feed off of, and Brandon Staley can bring some new coverage principles, which I think was the plan with wow, I already lost Wilkes. Wow, Steve Wilkes. I think that was that was the idea, right? And it didn't work out because he's coming. It was just one voice coming from the outside, not really understanding how kind of the culture that this defense had built under Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, right? And so you pivot and you go, all right, well, now we have this play caller that has been here, that understands the culture, that understands, what we what we do as a defense, the energy that we need, right? He's going to be on the sideline. But now we've got this guy that Kyle Shanahan respects, that has, you know, a lot of experience in a system that, you know, has spread pretty far and wide on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL. And that is the Vic Fangio tree, right? Of coverage principles. If we can marry those two, then I think you're looking at a top 10, maybe even a top 5 defense. Injuries, obviously.
You think they can be that good?
I do, because again, it's a very, the defense, a lot of the defense is the same. I think this upcoming season, the defensive backs are actually probably the strength of the team, which is new, and an interesting development for me. And so I think coverage wise, I think they're going to be really strong. And then it'll just be interesting to see if they can right the ship when it comes to run defense. And I know that's a big concern of yours. And honestly, we won't know. We won't know until the season starts. But I have confidence that they have remade the defensive line to be more similar to what we saw in 2021, 2022, with just wave after wave, right? Not necessarily a bunch of superstars, but, a bunch of guys that you can just cycle through, right? And just continue to bring new energy onto the field. You've got guys to fill roles that weren't really there last season. Whether or not those guys can fill those roles, right? I'm thinking Yetur Gross-Matos as kind of the Charles Omenihu guy. I have confidence in Leonard Floyd as arguably the best pass rusher opposite Nick Bosa since D Ford. So there's that new wrinkle as well. So I'm confident in this defense because I think the talent is there, and it's just a matter of if Sorensen and Staley, if that marriage and works, and Sorensen, brings the energy back to the sideline that seems to have been missing. I have a lot of confidence in this defense.
So I'm interested to see how they use Floyd, if he's going to be just sort of a pass rusher, third down type guys, and then Gross-Matos will play on the edge and first and second downs, which could be how they deploy the defensive line to start. The secondary is really, I agree. I think it could be the strength. Isaac Yiadom, keep hearing good things about him. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the outside guy, and Lenore kicks inside when they're in their nickel package, and then you have the second round pick Green. We know how good Ward was last year. He was really probably a top 5 corner in the league last year.
100%. Yeah.
I am worried about the safety group, but I think they're going to get creative there. I think you're going to see Ezekiel Turner be maybe a third safety. He's listed as a linebacker, but he could be sort of a third safety in those passing situations. Got to see how Hufanga comes back. But Jair Brown, they clearly like him. They haven't gone out and signed a Justin Simmons as much as I want them to. So they like Brown and Mustafa. You're hearing good things about him. So, let's see what happens with that secondary. It definitely looks good. The Greenlaw thing worries the hell out of me. But again, if they're going to put a line or Ezekiel Turner, another safety in those passing situations, they can cover things up till he gets there. Yeah. Bosa. The player, and I talked about this a few shows ago too, Malik Collins to me is the guy. They need him to have a big year. They need him to, and Chris Kosirk said a lot of good things about him. He's going to be great for the system. He attacks. He's going to be a good fit. He needs to be, because if he's not, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, I think. Again, Javon Hargrave has to show me the arrow is not pointed down, that he can have a little bit of a bounce back year. But even if he does, he's not a run stuffer. Right. So, that's going to worry me, Brian, until they prove me wrong out on the field. It just really is. I'm never going to stop being worried about the run defense right now. I just feel like last year they got absolutely exploited, especially in the playoffs. So it's going to be something where they have to show me. And I think that could be their Achilles heel. The ball, we're talking about, the state of the team and the state of the defense right now. But to me, here's the thing that you can't quantify. At some point, the ball is going to bounce the wrong way. The Niners have had a lot of bounces go, but you have to. The Patriots did. The 80s Niners did. Whatever, team that's successful all the time, the ball bounces their way a lot of the time. Just happens. eventually that's not going to happen. And I think even more than what we talk about on the field, that's what worries me. Is they had so many chances. At some point, that ball is going to bounce the other way. At some point, injuries are going to happen. At some point, regression is going to kick in. So that worries me more than anything. I think it's just how many breaks can they get? How many times can you go to the NFC Championship before you just lay an egg in January and something happens?
Right.
It happens. So that's probably my biggest worry. But other than that, yeah, man, the center of that defensive line, somebody's got to step up to me.
Yeah, and if you look at Malik Collins and you just look at production, just the production numbers, very, very similar to Eric Armstead's production last season. Now, granted, Armstead missed time, but in terms of just pure production, Malik Collins, very similar. Now, again, we talked about what Eric Armstead brought to that locker room as a leader. We talked about what Eric Armstead brought to that defense once the lights got brightest in the playoffs, right? Where he just was an absolute just game wrecker. Can Malik Collins do something similar? I don't know. I don't, again, what did he do last season in the regular season? Very similar to Eric Armstead. But again, we haven't seen him outside of, the Texans 2 playoff games. He doesn't have a lot of experience in the playoffs. So that will be interesting. But again, coming from a DeMeco Ryans defense, like we know that he fits. We know that he fits. We know that they eyed him as Eric Armstead's replacement and got it done. So they believe, obviously, that Collins can do it. Now it's just a matter of, when he gets on the field, does what they thought he would bring actually is what he brings. Obviously, we have to wait and see. But they made moves to overhaul a defensive line that was supposed to be a strength last year and ended up not being a strength. So again, I appreciate them looking at the team and going, where did we falter as a team? Where did we falter in the playoffs, even though we made it to the Super Bowl? Where did we falter in the Super Bowl? Like, what were our weaknesses? And it sure seems like they did some self-scouting and said, all right, well, we got to shore up our run defense. We got to get a better, we need our defensive line to play better. Let's overhaul that. Let's bring in, let's get back to where we were 2021, 2022. Right. And I think they did that. And then I think Kyle Shanahan looked at the offensive performance and went, all right, what happened in the second half against the Chiefs? Well, they went primarily press man coverage, and we just had a bunch of guys that couldn't take advantage. And my game plan was Debo heavy, and Debo was injured. We understand that. I know that. But also, route running is not his forte. He wasn't getting open. And the offensive line wasn't blocking well enough for, second and third reads to come open for Brock Purdy. And so the offense stagnated and struggled. So what they do, they drafted Ricky Pearsall, right, who is a route technician. They drafted Jacob Cowing as another guy who can be a man beater, but also can be a guy that can take the top off the defense, right? And so if you go into man coverage, you can exploit that a little bit with someone like a Jacob Cowing or a Ricky Pearsall. So it seems like as an organization, they scouted their weaknesses from the playoffs and tried to address them the best they could with the cap that they had. Again, they've got a ton of cap space now, but that's because of a post June 1 cut of Eric Armstead. So they really didn't get Eric Armstead's money to try and beef up the defensive line in a different way. But I think they made shrewd moves, both on the defensive line and in the secondary with Isaac Yiadom and Rocky Sin. I
keep forgetting Yasin's even there.
Yeah, right. That's another guy that I think
is even on the team.
Right. And gone are the days where, if Ward or Lenore go down, right,
you're screwed.
You're like, oh, now Ambry Thomas has to see the field. Now, now it's Isaac Yiadom, it's Rocky Sin, it's, it's guys that you've brought in, Renardo Green in the second round, the Darrell Luter Jr., the 5th rounder from last year, they really like. Guys like Ambry Thomas and Samuel Womack are fighting for their lives in this, in training camp this year. And I imagine that they're probably not going to make at least the 53 man. Maybe they'll keep a guy like Womack, try and keep him on the practice squad or whatever. I think Ambry Thomas's time as a 49er is probably over. But like I said, they saw the same weaknesses we did. The only weakness they didn't, or at least they told us that everybody thinks is a weakness, but we don't, again, is right tackle. They did not address that. And so we'll see. But I feel a lot more comfortable at right guard with Pooney and Feliciano kind of battling for that. I think either one of those guys is going to solidify that position. And obviously that makes it a little bit more fortified with McKivitz at right tackle than Burford and McKivitz at right tackle. So, I mean, again, they know what they're looking for, and apparently we don't. And we'll see if it works. But I just appreciate that they've really attacked some of their weaknesses this offseason to, again, just have kind of that one last ride with that core, because the 2025 49ers are going to probably look quite a bit different.
Oh, massively different. Yeah. And I think what I'm most excited about on the offense is how that passing game is going to evolve and look and expand. And you mentioned the two rookies they bring in that are better against man coverage. And I think Matt Mayoko had mentioned, was it an article or he was on the radio? I don't remember, but something that he wasn't sure Cowling was going to make the team. And that really caught me by surprise, because I think he's almost a lock. I mean, from the outside looking in, Matt knows a whole lot more than I do, obviously, but he seems like a lot to me. And he seems like the type of guy this year, he may have 12 catches, but there's going to be a couple 30-yarders in there. There's going to be a couple of big plays in there that maybe they weren't getting in other spots. That's going to be huge. And again, how they deploy, if everybody's back, if Aiyuk is status quo and Debo's there, and Kittle and Juwan Jennings, how Pearsall gets in there and what his role is going to be, I'm really, really, that intrigues me, because they're going to get him involved somehow, some way. Yeah. So that's intriguing to me. And the other thing that intrigues me is Kyle mentioned that he's got to sort of save McCaffrey from himself, because McCaffrey never wants to come out of the game, but they have to figure out, other guys to touch the ball. Yeah. Is Elijah Mitchell going to be healthy? And even on the team, I don't think he's a guarantee to be there, depending on what you see from somebody like Garendo. Right. Is Garendo, because they've had a long line of whiffs at running back that they've drafted. Is he a guy that's going to come in and somebody who can spell McCaffrey, and you don't feel like you're always going to lose something when McCaffrey's out of there, but you feel like this guy can make plays for us? It's not a gigantic downgrade to the point where we can never let Christian leave the field. He's got 4.3 speed. Is he going to fit in? Is he going to be a better player? So I think that offense can be better this year, which is a little scary when you think about how efficient and good they were last year. I think that offense they averaged about 30 points a game last year, can be even more dynamic. A lot of that depends on, is the O-line going to at least stay the same, right? And Purdy, what are the expectations for Purdy this year? I think he's not going to lead the league in 8 categories again, or whatever it was. I don't think that's a fair expectation. Probably not, but maybe. Probably not going to do that. But can he be similar? Can he have a similar year? Can he be 85% of what he was? If you want to look statistically, does he have 28 touchdown passes? Does he have, can he still throw for 4,000 yards? Can he be as efficient as he was? They were last in the league in pass attempts last year, the Niners. They scored all those points, and Purdy still set the franchise record for passing yards. So it's ridiculous, right? When you think about it that way. So can they still be that efficient? So yeah, this team is still going to be a good team. I think offensively, they're going to score a ton of points. Yes. Stopping the run is what I worry about. That's my big worry right now. I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback, Jim Bosa, because Leonard Floyd is an upgrade there, because that's Javon Hargrave's strong suit. I still Malik Collins is a good pass rusher. They're going to be able to do that. Can they stop the run? So that's my main concern with them, and just shit going wrong. Someone in the chat mentioned everything that went wrong in the Super Bowl at the end with Greenlaw getting hurt in the muff punt. Yeah, 100%. But what happens if that stuff goes wrong in the division round or the wild card round? or week 15 when you're looking for home field. That was kind of my point with it, is the Niners have gotten bounces to get them in the spot to be in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. What if that stuff happens earlier?
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you love true crime or comedy, celebrity interviews or news, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. And guess what? Now you can call them on your auto insurance too with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, activities, excursions, and more in one place to make your trip truly unforgettable. Viator has over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from. Everything from simple tours to extreme adventures and all the niche, interesting stuff in between. So you can plan something that everyone you're traveling with will enjoy. Real traveler reviews give the inside scoop from the people who've already been on the experiences you're considering, so you can plan with confidence. Free cancellation helps you plan for the unexpected, and 24/7 customer support means you can travel worry-free. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Yeah, they were pretty healthy last year in terms of games lost to players that really are difference makers. And they lost Trent Williams for arguably, you could say, 3 games, right? Because he was injured in that Cleveland game and stayed in, but he wasn't 100%, and then he missed the next 2 games. And the offense struggled. And Debo was also out, and the offense struggled. Now, did the offense struggle more because Debo was out or because Trent was out? I would venture to say the latter. It's because of Trent. But again, your offensive line is buoyed so heavily by Trent Williams that if that guy goes down, that could be a season ender in terms of whether or not this team makes the playoffs or makes the Super Bowl. And again, that's scary considering that he is in his mid-30s now. I think on both sides of the ball, there's really only 2 players. Actually, I take that back. There are 3 players on this team outside of the quarterback, because the quarterback, anytime you lose a quarterback, you're done. Like it is what it is in this league.
Yeah.
When if your quarterback goes down for any stretch of time, it's going to be a difficult road to hoe. But non-quarterback, I think there are 3 players on this team that if they were lost for any significant amount of time, this team would be in a world of hurt. And that is on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah.
Okay. Trent Williams.
Yes.
Nick Bosa.
Yes.
Fred Warner.
Correct. Yeah. Those are the three for me.
Yep.
Those are the three.
Wasn't sure in the third one, but okay.
Because I think Fred Warner is the centerpiece of this defense. Fred Warner is what makes this defense work. He's a unicorn in this league in terms of his size for the position, his coverage ability for the position, what they can do with their coverages, because Fred Warner is just a freak athlete and just, like I said, a unicorn. If he went down for an extended period of time, that defense would suffer greatly. I think even if Charvarius Ward went down, I think they have enough bodies to make it work
now
in the offense. Yeah. In the defensive back room. But yeah, if Warner went down or if Bosa went down for extended period of time, that defense would be, that defense would struggle. And then on the offensive side, again, I think Trent Williams is really the only one. Maybe Kittle for an extended period of time, just for what he does in the for the run game. I genuinely appreciate that they finally have a tight end too that can be a receiving threat. But
Thomas was a good pickup.
It was a great pickup, but also Logan Thomas is more of a threat out wide than he is in line, and so I like what he can bring as tight end too. But if Kittle went down for an extended period, I don't know that he could fill Kittle's shoes in terms of what he does in the run game and things like that. So I think that could probably, Kittle might be, you might add him to the list. But I think if Debo went down, I think they could weather that. I think if Aiyuk went down, I think they could weather that.
Agree.
But and I think even if Christian McCaffrey went down, I think they could weather that. Not because he's not important, but just because it's the running back position. And I know what he brings to this offense. But I still think that they could weather it. Now, if he was gone for the whole season, maybe not, but I still think they could weather it. But
a short game stretch.
Yeah.
We're talking about how fortunate they've been with injuries and everything recently, just how fortunate they've been in general. I was watching over the weekend on NFL Network. They had rivalry weekend. They played Niners-Packers games all weekend, or on Saturdays, whatever game it was. But I was watching. It was a 2021 game where Trey Lance came in at the end of the half. They were down 7-0 and ran the ball in, and Trey Sermon was running back.
Yep.
And Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, they're talking about, Trey Lance and Trey Sermon. This is the future of the 49ers. Everything hinges on these guys. And I thought to myself, I cannot believe how bad this team effed up.
Yeah,
and it was one of the worst trades, whether Trey Lance ends up being good or not. And the jury's still out on that.
Yeah.
He was not good for the 49ers. They moved on from him in 2 years. Yep. That's one of the worst trades of all time. It was a disaster. And now the Niners may be feeling it with depth right now, and we'll know in a couple of years if they could have used those first round picks. That may hurt them that way. But on the field to this point, it has not hurt them at all.
Yeah, the fact that they've weathered that is wild.
It's insane. I don't know if any other teams could have pulled that off, to the point where you trade all these first round picks in 2021 for a quarterback, completely whiff. He plays 2.5 games for you, 3.5 games for you, almost nothing. You move on from him within 2 years, and in that time span, you made 3 NFC championships and a Super Bowl. And this year, you're favored to go to the Super Bowl again. On what planet did that happen?
With a quarterback that you drafted the following year with the last pick in the draft.
The last pick. On what planet does that happen? Like, it's got to be a 30 for 30 at some point. It's unbelievable.
It has to be. Yeah.
And I just sat there like, wow, really, you guys made maybe one of the worst trades of all time. Maybe the worst trade in franchise history, if you want to cut the O.J. Simpson one, where the Niners gave up all those picks for a broken down O.J. Simpson at that point. That's certainly up there. I'm sure there's been some other ones that are bad. One of the worst trades in franchise history, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter at all. It's insane.
The other thing that's wild is this is also the same regime that traded DeForest Buckner for Javon Kinlaw.
Essentially, Javon Kinlaw. And took Solomon Thomas with the 3rd overall pick.
Right.
When you had Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, yeah, whatever. Like, who survives that stuff? It's the stuff that the Bears and the Browns do when you're just like, oh my God, but they hit on late round picks and they made good trades. And
yeah, I mean, I think
Nick
the
Bosa
question
fell in their laps.
Yeah. The real question is, like, you look at that and you go, all right, so Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch aren't great talent evaluators, right? That's the only thing that you can really draw from that. But then the other question becomes, what does that say about them, though, that they can weather that? Like, it's such a weird dynamic. It's like, look at all these whiffs in the first and second round and the third round, really. Look at all of these whiffs, right? There's been 2 non-whiffs, and it's Nick Bosa, which they can't even take credit for. That's just the Cardinals. Yeah. And Brandon Aiyuk, right? Out in the first round. And then in the second round, you can hang your hat on Deebo Samuel. And that's it. Can you say Aaron Banks? Probably not. Like, it's just,
I mean,
yeah,
for a guard, then, you feel like you can get starting guards in the mid round. So.
And then in the third round, the only thing that you can hang your hat on is Fred Warner in 2018, right? Like, to have that many.
McGlinchey wasn't an awful pick. I mean, he did start 5 or 6 years. He wasn't a top 10 worth pick, but wasn't awful.
But that kind of track record in the first 3 rounds to still be able to build a team that has been to 5 NFC championships games in 6 years, and been to 2 Super Bowls in that span, 3 straight NFC championship. Like, it's just wild. It's just wild. And again, I think, to me, that speaks to Kyle Shanahan, the coach, that for as much flack as he gets, there's very few in the NFL who are better than Kyle Shanahan. You know, obviously there are flaws that need to be fixed if he wants to be considered, you know, in that upper echelon of Andy Reid's and Mike Tomlin's and, you know, Bill Belichick's and things like that. But I mean, when you lay it out, it's both embarrassing, right? Because you're like, damn, like they are awful in the first 3 rounds. But then also at the same time, on the other side of the coin, you go, man, they are really good at hitting in the late round, and then B, just whatever it is about Kyle Shanahan and the culture that he builds, it is a winning culture. And this team has been, you know, one of the top 3 teams in the NFL essentially for every year except 2018, right? Or 2017 and 20. So the first 2 years of Kyle Shanahan's tenure, they were not good.
2020, you throw it out the window. That was
right. And 20
year, you throw out the window to me.
Right. I mean, you throw out the window for everybody, in my opinion. But you know, but yeah, it's wild. It's both impressive and, like, imagine if they hit on those picks, how much better they'd be right now. It's maddening, and also, again, just to me I guess a confirmation that Kyle Shanahan is, you know, one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think there's maybe 3 teams right now that would not fire their coach if Kyle Shanahan became available.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Close, you know, 3 to 5 type thing. I would say he's definitely up there right now. He's a Super Bowl away from being an elite Hall of Fame type head coach, but he's got to go over that hump at some point. We'll see if he does. But all right, well, thanks for listening, and please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we're on YouTube. I just made a TikTok account. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but we're figuring that out too. Look for the No Huddle podcast. But YouTube, again, a lot of cool stuff coming up on YouTube. I'm putting up clips right now, or I should say we are, of, you know, different guests that we've had on. We just put one up with Peter King and Cynthia Freeland and Mark Schlereth. And we're going to have more of these guests on as the year comes. Mike Silver is going to come on and talk about his book, Cam Inman. You know, we just had Vernon Davis on. So look for a lot of guests, and they're going to be on the podcast, but also on YouTube as well. So please, please, please subscribe to the YouTube station, and wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us a lot.
Rate, review, subscribe, do all those things. Help us out. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And we will be back later this week with Akash from Niners Nation. But until then, for Al, I'm Brian. Later.
Niners on 3. 1, 2, 3. Niners!
2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.
All-star closer Kenley Jansen, we have a question.
What's the best podcast of all time? Baseball isn't boring, baby.
I'm Rob Bradford, and every single day I'm sitting down with the biggest names to show you this great game is the greatest game. It's my podcast. It's my passion. It's a cause I started more than 2 years ago and is now the most prolific national daily baseball pod there is. Another fact, so jump aboard the BIB Express. Follow and listen to Baseball Isn't Boring, presented by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.